Under Trump, the more than mixed results of maximum pressure. In 4 years, Donald Trump has stepped up sanctions against opponents of the United States like never before, but this policy of maximum pressure applied around the world has not had the desired results. Sanctions have clearly been the Trump administration's favored tool in responding to rogue regimes, Richard Goldberg of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, FTD, who advocates this hard line, told AFP. Previous administrations used sanctions, but in a more narrow or targeted manner, he adds, without seeking macroeconomic upheavals to destabilize governments and force them to change their attitude. Until the end, 25 days before the presidential election, the U.S. government announces punitive measures against Cuba, Syria or Belarus almost daily. Sometimes it strikes again a big blow. The Treasury cracked down on Thursday against the 18 main banks Iranian. Washington will have tightened the screws on almost every sector of the country since President Trump left the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. This maximum pressure campaign was theorized in May 2018 by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who set out 12 conditions for reaching a new deal with Tehran. The stated objective, to bend the Iranian authorities by suffocating their economy so that they agreed to change their behavior. The Trump administration has always denied, without necessarily convincing, seeking regime change. Today, none of Mike Pompeo's conditions are met, and the Islamic Republic has even relaunched, in retaliation, some nuclear activities that bring it closer to the making of an atomic bomb. Weakened Iran. The government will say we have weakened Iran, which is true, but there has been no real change in Iranian behavior, said Thomas Wright of the Brookings Institution think tank. For Richard Goldberg, the success of a sanctions policy depends on the objectives set. In Iran, the regime has considerably fewer resources to spend on its nefarious activities, which in itself is a victory for the national security of the United States, he said. And in his eyes, the regime will be forced to negotiate in 2021 with whoever wins the U.S. presidential election. On the contrary, Barbara Slavin of the Atlantic Council think tank sees the latest sanctions as sadism disguised as foreign policy, as they will not bring the Iranian government to its knees but will weaken ordinary people. In Venezuela, the American intention was very clear: to oust President Nicolas Maduro, deemed illegitimate, from power. But the socialist leader is still there. Trump lost interest in the matter when he saw that Maduro was not leaving, said Thomas Wright. The result is more nuanced in North Korea. After a series of nuclear tests and intercontinental missile fire, Washington succeeded in 2017 in rallying the international community to the UN to impose draconian sanctions. Backed by the military threat, this helped bring North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to the negotiating table in 3 historic meetings with Donald Trump. No denuclearization. Trump ended up giving in a lot, in a sort of de facto deal that freezes intercontinental gunfire and nuclear testing in exchange for a more peaceful relationship, Wright said. But the complete, definitive and verifiable denuclearization of North Korea, long touted as the only valid outcome, remained in limbo as Pyongyang even continued its atomic activities. Yet with their sanctions against Iran, the Americans have demonstrated their full force. Not only did they target Iranian institutions, leaders and companies, they also matched their so-called secondary sanctions measures. Any country or company that continues to trade with Tehran is also targeted. The effect is drastic. European countries tried by all means to maintain their trade relations with Iran to save the 2015 agreement, but the price to pay was too high, since their companies risked being barred from accessing the vast markets and American financial sector. The main lesson of the past 4 years is what the United States can do on its own, without the support of its traditional allies, said Richard Goldberg. It changes the game. Will this use of sanctions remain as an achievement of American diplomacy? There is a growing consensus within the political class that they must be part of a larger strategy, and not be a strategy in itself, as has sometimes been the case in recent years, explains Thomas Wright.